October 27, 1962, 300 feet below the Caribbean Sea. Temperature inside Soviet submarine B-59, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Oxygen levels, critical. Depth charges exploding against the hull every few seconds, like sitting inside a metal barrel being hammered with sledgehammers. The captain, enraged and exhausted, gives the order, "Prepare the nuclear torpedo. We will die, but we will sink them all." The weapons yield? 10 kilotons, the same power as Hiroshima. One man stood between that order and World War III. His name was Vasili Arkhipov, and you've probably never heard of him. To understand how close we came to annihilation, we need to rewind 2 weeks. October 14th, 1962. An American U-2 spy plane photographs something terrifying on the island of Cuba. Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction, just 90 miles from Florida. President John F. Kennedy addresses the nation. The world holds its breath. For 13 days, humanity teeters on the edge of nuclear war. But while diplomats negotiate in Washington and Moscow, another crisis is brewing beneath the waves, one that nobody knows about. 4 Soviet Foxtrot-class diesel submarines, B-4, B-36, B-59, and B-130, are secretly dispatched from the Kola Peninsula on October 1st. Their destination? Mariel, Cuba. Their mission? Establish a Soviet naval presence in the Caribbean. Each submarine carries 22 torpedoes. But one of those torpedoes is different. One is nuclear-armed. The rules of engagement are chilling. If the submarine comes under attack and cannot communicate with Moscow, the captain and political officer can authorize a nuclear launch on their own. No permission needed. No hotline to the Kremlin. Just 2 signatures. But on submarine B-59, there's a third man who must also agree. A coincidence that will save the world. Meet Captain Second Class Vasili Alexandrovich Arkhipov, 36 years old, quiet, polite, unshakable. He's not just the executive officer of B-59, he's also the chief of staff for the entire submarine flotilla. That means he has equal authority with the captain, Valentin Savitsky. And because of his rank, all 3 senior officers on B-59, Savitsky, political officer Ivan Maslenikov, and Arkhipov, must unanimously agree before a nuclear weapon can be fired. A procedural quirk, a stroke of luck, a thread holding civilization together. B-59 departs the frozen waters of northern Russia on October 1st. Built in Leningrad between 1959 and 1961, the Foxtrot-class submarines are considered among the best diesel-electric boats in the world, capable of traveling 26,000 miles without refueling. But these subs weren't designed for the tropics. As B-59 races south at 10 knots, equipment begins to fail. The crew starts to suffer. Days pass without surfacing. The air grows stale. Temperatures climb. Then on October 27th, Black Saturday, the single most dangerous day of the Cold War, everything goes wrong. Above the surface, a Soviet missile battery shoots down an American U-2 spy plane over Cuba, killing the pilot. Kennedy's advisors push for immediate military action. The world is one miscalculation away from catastrophe. Below the surface, the situation is even worse. The U.S. Navy's anti-submarine warfare forces, 11 destroyers and the aircraft carrier USS Randolph, detect B-59 near Cuba. They've been hunting Soviet submarines for days, and now they've found one. The Americans have no idea B-59 is carrying a nuclear weapon. Standard procedure: drop practice depth charges, low explosive training devices meant to signal the submarine to surface for identification. But the message explaining they're just signals never reaches B-59 or Moscow. Inside the submarine, it sounds like war. Communication officer Vadim Orlov later recalls, "It felt like sitting in a metal barrel with someone hitting it with a sledgehammer." The crew was in shock. For 4 hours, the bombardment continues. Boom, 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 relentless, terrifying. B-59's batteries are nearly dead. The submarine can't stay submerged much longer, but Captain Savitsky refuses to surface. He pushes deeper, trying to evade the Americans. At depth, the submarine cannot receive radio signals. They have no contact with Moscow, no idea whether war has already started above them. The last thing they heard from the outside world were civilian radio broadcasts days ago. Inside B-59, hell is unfolding. The air conditioning has failed. In the Caribbean heat, temperatures inside the submarine soar to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Some accounts say it reached 50 degrees Celsius in certain compartments. Carbon dioxide levels spike. Oxygen depletes. Sailors begin to faint. One duty officer collapses, then another, then a third. They drop like dominoes. The crew is covered in sweat, suffering from heat stroke, dehydration, severe headaches. Some develop rashes, others hallucinate. They are in every sense trapped in a metal coffin. And Captain Valentin Savitsky, exhausted, disoriented, furious, reaches his breaking point. When another depth charge rocks the submarine, Savitsky explodes. Maybe the war has already started up there while we're doing somersaults down here. We're going to blast them now. We will die, but we will sink them all. We will not disgrace our Navy. He orders the duty officer to prepare the nuclear torpedo for battle readiness. Load it into the tube. Arm it. The weapon is ready. The order is given. Political officer Ivan Maslenikov agrees with Savitsky. 2 signatures, 2 out of 3. All eyes turn to Vasili Arkhipov. In that suffocating, hellish submarine, with explosions rocking the hull, with men collapsing around him, with his captain screaming for blood, Arkhipov does something extraordinary. He says no, not out of fear, not out of weakness, out of reason. Witnesses later describe a tense argument between Arkhipov and Savitsky, minutes that felt like hours, voices raised in the stifling heat. Arkipov's logic is calm, methodical. If the Americans wanted to destroy B-59, they already would have. These aren't real depth charges. They're signals. The proper response is to surface, make contact, and await orders from Moscow. Launching a nuclear torpedo without confirmation that war has started would be suicide and murder on a global scale. Arkipov's authority comes from more than just his rank. 1 year earlier, he was aboard the nuclear submarine K-19 when its reactor cooling system catastrophically failed during exercises in the North Atlantic. With no backup system and radiation levels skyrocketing, 7 engineers jury-rigged a secondary coolant to prevent a meltdown. They saved the submarine. All 7 died within a month from acute radiation syndrome. 15 more crew members followed within 2 years. Arkhipov was exposed to massive doses of radiation. When B-59 returns to the Soviet Union, the crew expects a hero's welcome. Instead, they are reprimanded. Soviet naval leadership is furious that the submarine surfaced and revealed itself to the Americans. One admiral tells them, "It would have been better if you'd gone down with your ship." Arkhipov never speaks publicly about what happened that night. His wife, Olga, later says he felt the crew's sacrifice and suffering were never appreciated. For 40 years, the world doesn't know how close it came to annihilation. The story finally emerges in 2002 at a conference marking the 40th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Retired officers from both sides gather in Havana. American and Soviet veterans compare notes. That's when Commander Vadim Orlov reveals the truth. B-59 was armed with a nuclear torpedo. Captain Savitsky gave the order to fire. Vasili Arkhipov stopped him. Former U.S. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, stunned, says, "We came very, very close to nuclear war, closer than we knew at the time." Historian Arthur Schlesinger Jr. adds, "This was not only the most dangerous moment of the Cold War, it was the most dangerous moment in human history." Thomas Blanton, director of the National Security Archive, puts it simply, "A guy called Vasili Arkhipov saved the world." Had that nuclear torpedo been fired, the United States would have retaliated immediately. The Soviet Union would have responded. Within hours, intercontinental ballistic missiles would be launched from silos across 2 continents. Hundreds of millions would have died in the first strikes. Billions more in the nuclear winter that followed. Civilization as we know it would have ended. All because of one decision made in the suffocating heat of a submarine by men who thought they were already at war. Vasili Arkhipov died in 1998 at the age of 72, likely from kidney cancer caused by his radiation exposure aboard K-19. In 2017, his family was awarded the first ever Future of Life Award, a posthumous honor for exceptional measures, often performed despite personal risk and without obvious reward, to safeguard the collective future of humanity. His daughter Elena accepted the award in London. She said, "We must strive so that the powerful people around the world learn from Vasili's example." In 1962, the world got lucky, not because of diplomacy, not because of technology, not because of grand strategy, because one man, exhausted, irradiated, standing in a metal furnace with explosions hammering the hull, kept his head. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He reasoned. He persuaded. And when history asked him to pull the trigger that would end the world, Vasili Arkhipov said no. Today, 9 countries possess over 12,000 nuclear warheads. Early warning systems are faster, more automated. The time to make a decision has shrunk from hours to minutes. But the human element, the calm voice in the chaos, remains as critical as ever. We've had other close calls since 1962. In 1983, Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov refused to report a false alarm of incoming American missiles. In 1995, Russian radar mistook a Norwegian research rocket for a nuclear strike. President Yeltsin came within minutes of ordering retaliation. Each time it was a human being, not a machine, who stopped the launch. The world owes Vasili Arkhipov a debt it can never repay. But we can remember his example. In the face of fear and fury, he chose reason. In the abyss of war, he chose survival. And on the edge of oblivion, he chose humanity. That calm voice, rational, steady, unbreakable, saved 3 billion lives. It's a voice we must never forget, because the next time we stand at the brink, we may not be so lucky.